You've been told the reason rich people stay rich is discipline, willpower, grinding it out. That's all wrong. Discipline runs out. It's a muscle and muscles get tired, which is why 80% of people who set a budget quietly abandon it within 3 months. The people who actually build wealth over decades aren't relying on willpower at all. They're running on a 2,000-year-old operating system that the Stoics figured out long before anyone had a savings account. Control what you can control, expect what you can't, and stop wasting energy on the difference. Today I'm breaking down exactly how that shows up in 3 places: what you buy, what you save, and what you invest in. Plus, the one habit underneath all 3 that nobody talks about. Let's get into it. Firstly, the framework. Stoicism isn't about suppressing emotion. That's a myth. It's a philosophy built around one core split: the dichotomy of control. Some things are up to us, our choices, our effort, our reactions. Everything else, the market, other people, the economy, isn't. Marcus Aurelius ran an empire. Seneca was one of the richest men in Rome. Epictetus was born a slave. All 3 converged on the same idea. Peace, and by extension, good decision making, comes from sorting your life into things I control and things I don't, and refusing to burn energy on the second pile. Here's what matters for money specifically. Almost every bad financial decision comes from treating something outside your control as if it were inside, be it panic selling because the market did something you can't influence, or comparing your net worth to someone else's, which was never yours to control. Once you see money through that lens, 3 areas completely change. Let's start with spending, because this is where most people leak the most money without ever noticing. The Stoics practice something called premeditatio malorum, literally premeditation of evils. Before a big purchase, they'd mentally rehearse losing it, not out of pessimism or out of preparation. If you can imagine your car getting totaled, your phone getting stolen, your new couch getting ruined by a dog you don't even own yet, and you're still fine with the purchase, that's a decision from clarity, not impulse. Try this test before your next purchase over $200. Imagine you already own it and it breaks in 6 months. Are you still glad you bought it? If the honest answer is no, that's your answer. Amori fati and status spending. A huge amount of consumer spending isn't about the object. It's about the story the object tells other people. A new car, new watch, new kitchen. The Stoics had a phrase for accepting your actual circumstances instead of performing a version of life you don't have. Amor fati, love of fate. Not resignation, acceptance of what's true so you can actually act from reality instead of image management. Someone spending stoically doesn't ask, what will this signal? They ask, does this actually improve my life today, independent of who's watching? The 24-hour rule. Regular finance advice says wait 24 hours before buying something. The Stoic version adds a question to that wait. Is this one coming from me or from outside me? Epictetus separated desires that are natural and necessary from ones installed by comparison and marketing. Rent, food, shelter, necessary. The upgraded version of something you already own that works fine, installed. This isn't about deprivation. Seneca himself was healthy and didn't apologize for it. The discipline isn't spending nothing. It's spending only on what's actually yours to want. Now let's talk about saving, because this is where discipline-based advice fails hardest and where the Stoic approach quietly wins. Most people save inconsistently because saving feels like loss in the moment and only feels like gain far in the future. The Stoics train themselves to mentally rehearse hardship in advance, job loss, a medical bill, a bad year, specifically so that when it happened, it wasn't a crisis, it was a scenario they'd already lived through in their head. That's the actual purpose of an emergency fund, not in case. It's premeditatio malorum, automated into a bank account. When you've already mentally rehearsed the bad year, funding the emergency fund doesn't feel like a sacrifice. It feels like you're closing a loop you already opened in your mind. Here's the dichotomy of control applied directly to a savings rate. You cannot control the return your money makes sitting in a high-yield savings account, inflation, or a surprise expense. You can control the percentage of income you set aside and the automation that removes you from the decision entirely. That's why automatic transfers outperform "I'll save what's left" every single time, not because automation is smarter, it's because it removes a decision point from a person whose willpower was never going to be the reliable variable anyway. A subtle trap. Some people turn frugality into a personality, and then any spending, even reasonable, creates guilt. That's not stoic, that's just a new kind of attachment: investing. This is where Stoicism separates people the most, because investing is the one area of personal finance where your emotions are directly, constantly weaponized against you. You do not control interest rates, earnings reports, geopolitical shocks, or what the market does tomorrow. Full stop. A minded investor internalizes this before they put in a single dollar. What you do control: how much you invest, how consistently, what you're invested in, and critically, whether you sell during a crash. Look at March 2020. The S&P 500 dropped over 30% in about a month. The investors who panic sold are locked in the loss permanently. The investors who did nothing, who treated the drop as something outside their control and their reaction as the only variable that mattered, were fully recovered within 6 months and set new highs less than a year later. That's not a personality trait, that's a trained response. The Stoics practiced memento mori. Remember, you will die. Not to be morbid, but to create urgency about what actually matters and calm about what doesn't. Applied to investing, a 15% drop feels catastrophic if you're checking your portfolio daily. It's a rounding error if you're thinking in 30-year terms. Zooming out, your time horizon is the single most stoic thing you can do with a brokerage account. Epictetus separated what's up to us from what isn't with one more layer that applies directly here. You own your decision-making process completely. Did you diversify? Did you invest consistently? Did you avoid emotional trades, but you don't own the outcome in any given year? A stoic investor judges themselves on the quality of the decision, not the noise of a single quarter's return. Continual education. Here's the piece that ties everything together, and it's the one people skip. The Stoics treated philosophy as a daily practice, not a one-time read. Marcus Aurelius wrote what became Meditations as private journal entries to himself as nightly reflection, not a finished doctrine. Seneca wrote letters to a friend, working through ideas in real time, revising his own thinking as he went. None of them treated wisdom as something you acquire once and then possess forever. Apply that literally to your finances. The people who build lasting wealth aren't the ones who read one book on investing and stop. They review their spending monthly. They reread the same core ideas on compounding, on risk, behavior, not because the ideas changed, but because they need the reminder more than once. Discipline fades. A practice you return to on a schedule doesn't need to rely on willpower at all, because the schedule does the remembering for you. The Stoics had an evening practice. Review the day, note where you acted well, note where you didn't, without excessive self-punishment. A finance version of this takes 5 minutes. What did I spend today, and was it something I actually wanted or something I was sold? Did I move my money towards saving or investing on autopilot? Did I check my portfolio out of curiosity or out of anxiety? That 5-minute nightly habit will do more for your financial trajectory over 10 years than any single hack in this video. So to bring it back to the title, it was never about discipline. Discipline is a limited resource that runs out by Thursday. What actually separates people who build wealth over decades is a framework. Know what you control, prepare for what you don't, and build a repeatable practice around both. Control your spending inputs, not your market outputs. Automate your savings so willpower is never the variable. Judge your investing decisions, not your investing outcomes. And revisit what you know on a schedule, the same way the Stoics revisited their own journals every night. If this framework is powerful for you, make sure to like and comment on this video, and sub if you like what I'm putting out.